I have been a property owner on Dead Pike Lake for the last 36 years. The thing that I am most upset about is the water quality of our lake. When we purchased this property in 1977, the water was pristine, hard sand beach, the most wonderful place to raise children in the summertime. And my two children and I spent a good deal of time up here. I now have a grandchild, 5 years old. I wanted to bring him up this summer to swim in Dead Pike Lake. This beautiful August summer day, water looked like it could be very nice. I got to the water's edge and here was a scum on the top of the lake. I didn't dare go in, nor would I put my 5-year-old grandson in this water. We have noticed that the fishing has decreased. We have noticed any number of things. I am afraid if somebody went swimming in that water, I don't know what's in the water. Is it safe if you inhale it, if you drink it? Water quality is my big issue. Very much. And thank you very much for coming. Members of the DNR. We appreciate it.
First of all, I want to say that I was introduced to Dead Pike Lake in 1949. It was the first time I came up here. My husband wanted to show me where he deer hunted, and we went to see the lake. Since then, I've been a member of the Dead Pike Lake Association and am concerned about the department's ability to objectively arrive at a management plan for Powell Marsh. I watched my children, one there already retired and another one retired and the third one soon retired, play in that lake from early morning till late at night, get up the next day and do the same thing. Then I watched my grandchildren do this. However, it has come to the great-grandchildren, they can no longer do it. You get up in the morning, the flock, the odor, the whole thing is just revolting to look at it. So I will go on with this, but that I couldn't help but mention to you. For many years, well over a decade in fact, our representatives have been meeting with the department about the deteriorating water quality in our lake. The water from the marsh is polluting it. Several times we have been told that there are two groups of people who must be considered when the department makes decisions regarding the marsh's use. First, there are the stakeholders, the common folks. These are the people who turn up at hearings like this and are interested in hunting or bird watching and want to make sure that these things are preserved. But the real clout, we are told, comes from the second group, the partners, those who have contributed money to the department, such as Ducks Unlimited, who even wrote a contract to be paid back its $75,000 if its directives were changed. The memorial on the rock at the entry to the marsh lists a Circle of Flight group and several other donors as well. The Lakeland Times reported that these people had their own private dedication service on the marsh when the main dike was reinforced in 2004. The general public was never notified. The paper also said that the management plan for the marsh had largely been given to Ducks Unlimited, and then the paper outlined Ducks Unlimited's directives to the department on how they wanted the water control for the benefit of waterfowl. I would ask the department to explain how these obligations cannot help but influence their decisions. This is a blatant conflict of interest. How would the demands of the DUB contract be met if any changes occurred? Under these circumstances, how can we be sure that objectivity is guaranteed? I hope that you all realize how many years I have seen Dead Pike and seen what has happened to it in well over 60 years that I've been on the lake. So that's quite some time. Thank you.
Historically, the DNR has been very proud of its science-based approaches, and some of the recent activities that we've seen, Deer Plan being one example, in which many citizens felt that science was not being adequately used as a part of that process. Wisconsin has a rich history of being a leader in environmental areas. And we were the leader in the Clean Water Act and the Public Trust Doctrine and some of the environmental things that other people have referred to. So we established the kind of standards and the model in our state that many other states look to. And that's begun to change. And as part of the Dead Pike Lake Association, we've been really disappointed in the lack of use of science in this master planning process. You asked a question about Ducks Unlimited. Ducks Unlimited has a 25-year contract with the DNR to manage the marsh, and I haven't seen them at any of these meetings. So you had a very valid question there. I'm very sorry about your son, too. Our lake at this point is approaching eutrophication. The research that we had done was funded by the DNR. It was a $50,000 project. So a lot of that was your public money that went into the marsh study. We matched that study with our volunteer time, and so we have people like the Gazettas who have done Secchi disc readings in the lake and provided those results to the DNR for 17 years. We have people like Gail and Jean Wolfe who participated in collecting the research out on the lake for several years for the bar study. The person who's not able to be here tonight, Bunny Weisendonger, has been a loon ranger for 50 years reporting her research. The Longs have collected fish research and weather research. I mean, these are the models of what we want our community to be, where we have science and the DNR and the public as citizen volunteers working together to protect our natural resources. And I think that that's a model of what we should be doing. And when the research turns out to not support what you're doing, that's your opportunity to say, well, we're going to have to change some things. 15 miles of ditches and dikes create iron floc. They dredge up the iron, it oxidizes in the air, and it becomes an iron floc bacteria. This is bacteria we're talking about, and it's in our lake at amounts that are not naturally occurring in comparison to other lakes in this area. So yeah, I'm a little angry about this. I couldn't swim this summer. I didn't feel safe swimming in our lake. And it's not just because of the iron floc bacteria, it's also because of the high levels of phosphorus, which are illegally coming into our lake from the marsh. And we've come up with a simple solution, which is a tremendous partial restoration approach, which would be a modification of version 4, which would allow all the standing things to exist with the refuge and the trails that exist, so birding people can come in. I enjoy birding myself. But we're asking for 1,000 acres, which would be right near the outlet point from the marsh, that could be a natural restoration of the marsh. The marsh was once the largest leather leaf bog marsh in this country. And Dead Pike Lake, which is the discharge lake from the marsh, has been researched and studied as a scientific laboratory. That little lake has more plant species than just about any other lake in this state. 51 plant species. So we're talking about science and the degradation of a lake that's 60% public land. So that's something that you should be pretty concerned about too. Part of the public trust doctrine as well. I don't know why we're not protecting that lake. So I guess the main point that I'm trying to make is that we need to get back to science, and we need to look at this modified restoration plan. You heard the cost of repairing those ditches and dikes, which are doing nothing but polluting a natural area, changing a marsh into something it was never meant to be. Repair of a third of a dike, a third of a ditch, costs about $160,000. How long can we continue with this antiquated system? Why are we wedded to this? Is it because of the Ducks Unlimited contract, the binding 25-year contract with its $75,000 forfeiture clause if that contract is broken? Is it a reluctance to say we've made a mistake with this natural area? Now they've redefined it as instead of a marsh, it's being called a wildlife area, so they don't have to abide by the Clean Water Act. I think that's kind of shameful. And the Clean Water Act is there for a reason. The Clean Water Act is supposed to be for marshes and our natural areas. It's a way to protect those areas. And if we're not following the Clean Water Act because we've redesignated this land as a wildlife area, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. So I think I've covered most of, I wanted to mention, just as a quick side note, sphagnum moss is a natural marsh plant. That plant can absorb 20 times its weight in toxins. They use it for septic areas and all sorts of beautiful, it's just a wonderful tool for us to use. Why are we not restoring those kinds of things with universities nearby, with students that could come in and help us? We've been working on this for over a decade, so I apologize for my frustration, but you know, it's been a long road. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the DNR, thank you very much for coming to Matador's Waters to listen to our concerns. I'm Dr. William McGee, the property owner of Dead Pike Lake, a member of the board of directors of the Dead Pike Lake Association, and a family physician in the Northwoods for the last 40 years. I speak for myself and my wife and all the property owners on Dead Pike Lake. When I purchased my property on the lake, the water was clear, the sandy beach and bottom was clean sand. Now the water is cloudy, has a film on top at times, and the sand is covered with iron floc. The association has spent many hours and dollars to study the lake, including a grant from the state of Wisconsin DNR. The conclusions of Barr and Associates, our engineering firm, is that the inflow to Dead Pike Lake is contributing to the deterioration of the water quality of the lake. When I look at the lake and the conclusions of the studies, I need to put on my doctor's hat. The lake is sick and needs to be treated. Several principles come into play when dealing with sick patients or sick lakes. First is to determine the cause of the illness. The second is to treat the cause of the illness. Third is the realization that if the first prescribed treatment is not curing the illness, a different approach is required. To repeat the same treatment after it's failed is not appropriate. Dead Pike Lake is sick. Our research indicates the Powell Marsh contributes to our illness. Our plea is that the DNR find a way to solve the deteriorating water quality. Powell Marsh is part of an ecosystem and is not an isolated unit. It affects the surrounding area, including Dead Pike Lake. Please look at the research, look at the marsh, and look at Dead Pike Lake, and develop a plan to treat the illness for the quality. I noticed in the regional property analysis there's little reference to the Barr study. I'd encourage you to go back and look at that again. And then I would remind you also that the function of the marsh is purification of the water. It's not happening. And we need to do something to get that. That's part of the cure. The most important thing on my agenda is the water quality. Thank you very much.
Mary Gaston.